Hi everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of In the Fox's Den. Today we're carrying on a sporting theme, not football, as everyone's been watching the football at the moment. But this time, this is my first boxer, and what a boxer he was as well. He was the featherweight WBO champion, British champion, Commonwealth champion. Fabulous boxer during the early 90s, and he's also done a lot since, and he's going to tell us all about that. So welcome to Colin McMillan. Hi Colin, how are you, sir?
Not too bad at all, my friend. How about you?
Yeah, no, fine. There's lots going on here at the moment, but for you the gyms have been closed, and that must have been a difficult time.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think like everybody else, during the pandemic, particularly like most of the gyms were closed. I think we opened for a few weeks and closed again. So yeah, it's been quite difficult. But over the last 5 or 6 weeks, we've reopened again. So you're still involved in that. So yeah, it's been hard, but we're getting over it. Yeah.
So when July the 19th comes, because this is being recorded before then, are you going to have more things open in the gym? Is that going to open up even more for you, or is it going to stay the same as it is now?
I think for me personally, I think we've had to comply to all the various COVID regulations and that.
Yeah.
So it won't really affect us too much. We're more or less up and running. I think it will be slightly easier, but I don't think it'll make too much of a difference. As I say, we're nearly there now. So it's getting there.
Well, fingers crossed that everything gets back to near normal anyway in a few weeks' time. So let's talk about your career, sir, because it's been an illustrious career. So how did it start? I believe that your first professional fight was 1988, was it? Have I
I
got that
believe
right?
so.
Mike Chapman at the
That's right.
town
That's
hall
right.
in Battersea,
Yeah.
if I'm right. But what happened before then? How did you get into boxing?
Well, initially when I was quite young, I was always, very sports orientated. I love football, cricket, basketball, table tennis. I played quite a few sports, and but like all young kids, I used to watch TV, and at the time, Muhammad Ali was, great inspiration. And one day we was chatting around, and one of the guys from my school, Michael Jennings, used to go to Barking, the local amateur boxing club, and a few of us said, "Oh, we wouldn't mind coming down." And I think I was 15 years old. So we all popped down there, and from that first introduction in the gym, I was smitten, and I kind of loved the sport. And for me, it was I've done various sports before, but with boxing, it encompassed everything. It's the toughest sport out there, and you need to work on your all aspects of your fitness and your mental
Sure.
capability. So yeah, for me, I was kind of like caught very, very early on, and from when I started, I wanted to follow in the footsteps of Muhammad Ali, and then later on, I watched Sugar Ray Leonard, and I loved the way that those guys fought. They were, all about hitting and not getting hit. I like the beauty of the sport, enjoying, seeing someone think, use their brain, and that's what I tried to do. From an early age, I wanted to kind of like follow in their footsteps, go on to the Olympics, get a gold medal, and then become a world champion. That was my kind of goal from about 15 years old.
So it was an early start for you then. So what path did your career then follow? Because I know that you went professional in '88, but what was the lead up to that?
But before that, I think I was quite lucky. I think very early in my career, I think about my third or fourth fight, I was featured in a program called Henry Cooper's Golden Belt, which was on Channel 4. Back in the day, one of the early boxing programs. And from there, I think I got Boxer of the Night, and I was picked out for someone to watch. So carried on. I was winning most of my fights, losing a few, but learning in the meantime. I went on, year by year, kind of gradually got better, and I became London ABA champion 4 times, won the Featherweight championship. Then I got to the quarterfinals of the ABAs, and the semi-finals of the ABAs, and then 2 ABA finals. So, I represented England, I think 7 or 8 times. And I think it was back in '88, I was looking to go to the Olympics. I was in the Olympic squad, and I was trying to obviously fulfill my dream of going to the Olympics and getting a gold medal. And in the final, I fought a guy called Dave Anderson. I put him down. I thought I won the fight. It was a very close fight, split decision. But it went to him. And to be fair, we had another multinational tournament, and he went away and he got the gold medal, and he was sent to the Olympics. So I missed out on you know, what was my dream at the time. But like you know, after that, it's a lot harder because, you know, if you've got an Olympic medal or something like that behind you, it makes life in the professional game a lot easier. So without that, you know, I had to turn professional and, you know, take a slightly different route. But in the long term, it kind of worked out for me.
Did it make it easier because of people within the sport, or because of how the media then push you, or was it a bit of both?
You mean not winning a medal? You mean?
Well, if when you get a gold medal in the Olympics, and I'll take for example Audley Harrison, was
Mhm.
Audley Harrison's career made easier by getting that gold medal by the
Yeah,
media or by people within the sport itself?
it's everything. It's everything. So if you've got a gold medal behind you, all the promoters want to be part of you. The TV companies want to be part of you. The public know who you are. You're going to get more money. You know, so you kind of like not fast tracked, but you'll get a slightly easier path. People see you've got potential already, and you know, people want to buy into that. So it makes that path, you know, a lot easier. But if you haven't got that behind you, you've obviously got to go out there and prove yourself.
Sure.
So, you know, it can be, you know, a little bit more difficult. But, you know, sometimes if you get too much too soon, you kind of like, it's a negative thing in another way where, you know, for me, as an individual, you know, turning professional, I want to try and prove myself again. So it made me mentally, you know, tougher. So, you know, it swings and roundabouts, and I tried to take the positive from it, and you know, go on. And while I didn't, you know, become an ABA champion or an Olympic champion, you know, it kind of gave me the hunger to make sure that I went on there and fulfilled the other part of my dream.
Yeah. So who was that person in 1988 or 1987, if there was a lead up to it, who said to you, right, Colin, I'm taking you professional? And what was that moment like where you were suddenly going professional? And how did life change for you?
Well, to be fair, I mean, from very early on, my style was always very pro orientated. You know, the amateurs are always a little bit too fast. I like to take my time, think, you know, pick my punches. So, you know, from quite early on, my aim was to become professional. So the amateurs were more like an apprenticeship. So the end game was always to kind of
Yeah.
become a professional and go on to become a world champion. So that was always what I wanted to do. So it was just a matter of trying to put myself in the best position I could to do that. And obviously, like without the ABA, without the Olympic medal, obviously it was harder. So when that time came and I decided I wanted to turn professional, I had to see various promoters and find out what they had to offer. And as I said, at the time, I wasn't getting loads of offers. You know, it's quite difficult. I spoke to Barry Hearn, Mickey Duff wanted to sign me at one point, and but they put a few offers together, and nothing was really overly appealing. So I had a chat with a guy called Terry, the former world champion Terry Marsh,
Yeah.
and he said, well, why don't you try and manage yourself? He said, like, you know, I can kind of come on board as your manager, because the board control stipulate you need to be a manager to turn professional, and then later on when you're ready, you can try and take over your own reins. And that really appealed to me because, you know, someone like Sugar Leonard, he had a lawyer called Mike Trainer who advised him in that, but that's the route that he took. And you know, from quite early on, I always wanted to be in a position where, you know, I had a lot more control over my career. So that's the path we decided to take. And you know, I turned pro with Terry Marsh. At the time, he was involved in the World Sports Corporation, which had Ambrose Mendy and Frank Maloney.
Yeah.
And that's when my initial career kind of kicked off.
So was it that organisation, excuse me, or group of people that then led you to your first title fight, which I think was the British title against was it Kevin Pritchard in '91?
Gary DeVos, the thing, yeah, Gary DeVos. I mean, myself and Terry, we parted company. I think in my third fight, I got a cut eye. And I was out for quite a while to a guy called Alan McKay. I beat him twice in the amateurs, but I lost that third fight on a cut. And then we parted company. It was then that I came into contact with a journalist by the name of Jonathan Rendell. And he was a young guy, really clued up, really intelligent, and he's a great admirer of mine. He said, I really think you got all the tools to do it. And he spoke to a few different promoters for me. But yet again, there was no kind of great interest or no great offers coming through. So, so if you want, I can kind of come on board as your agent advisor, and, we can see what we can do. And then we started our little partnership, and it worked really, really well. We sat down, we kind of had a conversation with Frank Warren, and I came under his promotional banner. And then my career started taking off. At the time, we were televised on our TV shows. Then my profile started to rise, and before not too long, I had a good following. So it's all kind of going to plan.
You've got to get that media profile. Whatever you do, you've got to get that media profile behind you before everything starts moving. And I guess the big promoters like Frank Warren are the ones that can do that. So you got the nickname Sweet C. When did that happen? And tell me how it came about.
Well, basically, as I say, I've always been a great admirer of Sugar Ray Leonard. I loved the way that he fought, loved the way he conducted his career, and that. And when I was younger, people used to say, you're sweet just like Sugar Ray. So from there we kind of got Sweet C. And that the name was formed, and it was, at the time, there was another great fighter who I really respected, who came on, which is Pernell Sweet Pea Whitaker. And those kind of guys, defensively and offensively, they're special fighters. So I took that moniker, and it became Sweet C McMillan.
So when was that then? Was that after you won the world title, or was that?
Obviously, that was before. That was early on. I think a lot of fighters like to have a little nickname or whatever, and that kind of came, very early in life. I think I'm not even too sure if it was just while I was an amateur or just in my early pro days. So that became the name, and it stuck with me for ever since. And that.
Well, you're still called Sweet C today. I call you Sweet C today. So so it's I've just moved my. There you go. That was me mucking about with my mouse there. So I still call you Sweet C today. So let's move on to 1992, because that was a big year for you. I think, where you won both the Commonwealth titles and then the WBO title. So explain a little bit about 1992, because that was a great year.
That was a great year. That was a very, very big year for me, because obviously, I became obviously British champion. I won the Lonsdale belt in record time. Then I went on to become Commonwealth champion, and then obviously in 1992 I got married, bought a new house, and then eventually of the Capilla, it kind of like culminated in me fighting and winning the world championship. So 1992 was a very, very big year for me. And
it sounds like your dog agrees, Colin.
What's that?
Sounds like your dog agrees.
Oh yeah, she does. She's a great supporter.
Yeah. So so you beat Percy Comey, was it, to win the Commonwealth? And then the fight I really want to know about is Maurizio Stecher, which I believe was at Alexandra Palace.
That's right, yeah. Back in May 1992.
That's the night that you won the World Championship. So tell me a little bit about
that. Was a great night. For me, as a young kid, as many young kids, you always dream about becoming a world champion. And, for me, that time had come, that day had come. And all those years of hard work through the amateurs, through the pros, I got the opportunity to fight, Maurizio Stecher, who was, an accomplished fighter. He had, I think, 45 fights, 44 wins. And also he was a former Olympic champion. He went to the Olympics earlier on, and he got a gold medal, and he was also voted the best boxer of the tournament. So and for me, that had double impact, because obviously where I didn't go to the Olympics and get my gold medal. I actually fought somebody who got a gold medal. So in some ways, it kind of made up for me not going to the Olympics and getting a gold medal. So you know, when I beat him, he was kind of like double.
He should have given you his medal, Colin.
I'm sure he worked hard enough for that.
Now and say, hang on, you got beaten. You've got to give your medal up.
So yeah, so 1992, that fight was, you know, very, very special for me. You know, he was very, very highly thought of and technically exceptional fighter. But on the day, I kind of boxed really well, and you know, all those years which I struggled for and made sacrifices for, they they paid off, and I became the WBO World Featherweight Champion. So you know, something which I was extremely proud of, because, as I say, from a very young age, that had been my ambition.
Well, the thing is, Colin, as well, for all fight fans, and I'm one of those, and I've known you for quite a while now. Not only are you one of the nicest guys, if not arguably the nicest guy I know. I don't know how you've ever hit anybody, to be honest. But also, you were great to watch because you had a real all-round game, if you like, and it was great for fans to watch you. They really enjoyed watching you, didn't they? I mean, you.
Thank you. I mean, I think you know, I've always thought, you know, boxing is a sport, it's a business, and it's an entertainment. It's those three things combined, and if you can do that, you know, you'll have a great career. And fortunately for me, you know, I try to put all those components together, and I think I had a great career, and you know, had some great fights, and I can look back and I'm, you know, quite satisfied if what I achieved. Obviously, I could have achieved a lot more had I not got injured, but you know, at the end of the day, I kind of like I did go out as the world champion. So
well,
that was great.
This injury, because was it 4 months later you fought Steve Robinson?
I fought after that. My first defense, I fought a guy called Ruben Palacio.
Oh yeah.
Ruben Palacio, he's a Colombian, and tough fight. Actually, I got cut and everything else. It was quite a tough fight. But during that fight, I think I was 7th or 8th round, I went to throw a left hook. He came underneath, and then he came up. My shoulder came out of its socket. It was dislocated my shoulder.
Didn't you have a pin put in that?
After, after that, obviously that fight was actually stopped. So I lost my world championship in my first defense. After that, obviously I had a couple of operations on my shoulder. I had a pin put in, and I went to America to have microsurgery. So, you know, my career was kind of compromised after that. In that first defense, I was never the same, you know, after that first defense.
So when you fought Robinson, then you weren't fit, were you? Really, you weren't 100% fit.
The Steve Robinson fight, I fought him obviously a year after the injury. What happened there was the actual WBO rules stipulate that if a fight is stopped, you know, due to accidental injury, you know, you've got to go to the scorecards, and whoever's ahead is declared the winner. But they didn't do that. They because I was ahead when the fight got stopped. They gave it to Palacio. So as a result of that, we were negotiated whereby in the interim, Robinson had become WBO champion. So his first defense had to be against myself. But you know, my shoulder wasn't properly healed. You know, I put a pin in it and tried to do some rehabilitation stuff. But prior to the fight, I knew that it wasn't 100%, and I had already made plans to go to America to have microsurgery, whatever happened during the Robinson fight, which I lost on points. Yeah.
So even though you had that injury, you still came back in 1996, 3 years later, to win the British title again, I believe, against, was it John Joe Irwin?
Yeah, that's right. Obviously, like obviously things had changed, and I had a few injuries in that, and I had to, you know, pick myself up and then come again. We were trying to negotiate, you know, for another world championship slot, and in the meantime, I regained the British Championship against John Joe Irwin. You know, that was another you know, great night.
And there was talk of you fighting Naz Hamed, I believe, which
Yeah. I mean, that's what we were at. During the interim, you
yeah.
know, Nassim Hamid had come on the scene, and he was like, he was the main man at the time, and we were trying to negotiate a fight with him. We'd actually sparred years and years ago, so I always knew it would be a good fight if we actually, you know, faced each other in the ring. I knew he had a lot of respect for me, and that's what we were aiming for. But unfortunately, the fight
I think
never came
I
to
think
fruition.
everyone would have loved to see that fight, and that's the problem, Colin. Is you know, you look back over the past and fight fans. There's so many fights they would have loved to have seen that just don't happen, and
Yeah,
I think everyone's feeling that way at the moment about Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua. You know,
yeah. I
it's
think
going to happen at a time when they're both at their peak. Because I believe I heard today, I don't know whether you've heard today, that the Fury camp has now been tested positive for COVID, including Tyson himself, and the fight against Deontay Wilder has now been put off till October.
wow.
That happens, you know, we're waiting another year probably to
Yeah,
see any Fury against Joshua fight, and that's the problem, is that you can look back and you say, I wish this fighter had fought that fighter, because you'll never know. And you know, your fight with Prince Nazim Hamed is definitely one of those that people would have loved to have watched.
yeah. I mean, so I've always said, you know, when I became champion, I wanted to become undisputed champion. Back in my time, obviously, there was another fighter from England called Paul Hodgkinson, and
Yeah.
we were working on trying to get a unification fight, which nearly kind of came off. But as you say, I think it's so important for, you know, fighters to kind of go out there and prove who's the number one. You've got, you know, 3 or 4 different belts, but it's really nice for, you know, for the public when they see one guy who's the undisputed champion and universally recognized as the best in the world. So that's what I was aiming for, and you know, unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to have those fights.
They're often the problems, aren't they? The fact that there's what, 4 belts now.
Yeah, I think, yeah, 4 major belts now. So as you say, you know, where there's a lot of money involved, a lot of organisations involved,
Yeah.
all looking
And,
for a bit of money, and it's difficult to coordinate to try and get, you know, the
but
fight together.
also now it's the TV networks, isn't it? You know, you've got one fighter signed up with one TV network,
Yeah,
another
yeah.
fighter signed up with another one, and that throws a spanner in the works.
Exactly. Yeah, it makes it more. It's a shame, really, because, you know, I think the public. I think that's one of the things which we've got to watch out for. If you look at MMA, they seem to have got their act together, and they've all the best fight the best all the time, which is what it's all about. And I think you've got to make sure that the public, you know, don't lose interest, and then make sure that, you know, we see the fights that we want to see. So we see the best fighting the best, and that will kind of keep the sport, you know, on top.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So 1996 was John Joe Irwin, but 1997 sadly took you back to York Hall, where your career finally ended against Paul Ingle, I believe.
Yeah, as I said, we were negotiating or trying to get the Nassim Hamid fight.
Yeah.
Was working towards that fight, and in the meantime, obviously I had to defend against Paul Ingle. And to be fair, I looked at Paul, and I knew he was good, but, you know, I was quite confident. But, you know, he was, when we actually fought, he was he had that hunger, what, you know, what you call the eye of the tiger. You know, for me, I was looking at bigger things than world championships, and, you know, he was really, really hungry, and he was very, very good, good little fighter, good fighter, threw a lot of punches, and I felt kind of comfortable in there. But he was just relentless, you know, his fitness wise, and you know, hunger wise, he was really good. And the fight, I think he stopped me in the 7th or 8th round. I mean, it's an even kind of fight up until then, but, you know, he was young and hungry,
Sure.
and you know, I just think I made a miscalculation. I thought, you know, I fought guys who were better than him, guys who were stronger than him, guys who punch harder than him, and I was not overconfident. I was a little bit complacent, and you know, he did what he needed to do, and yeah, you know, the better man on the night won. So after that fight, I had to take a look at myself, and you know, I still felt I had a lot of ability, but I realised that, you know, the path back to that kind of level would be hard, and it's very, very hard to get yourself motivated, for hard fights, for little money when you've been at the top. So, after that fight, I decided to call it a day.
Was that a difficult decision for you, Colin, to decide to retire? Is it when when you've had such a great career in the sport and it's what quite often somebody in other walks of life will make that decision for you, but for you then to have to make that decision and say, okay, that's my last fight, how difficult is that?
Yeah, it's difficult because, as I say, sometimes, particularly boxers, you know, I started when I was 15. That was my game. That was my goal throughout my life. You know, everything had been geared towards boxing. Even when you're training or you're not training, you're resting up until you can start boxing. So all your height, all your thoughts are kind of like geared towards doing that. And
Yeah,
then, I always say why a lot of sports people, particularly boxers, struggle because one minute you got a goal, you got to focus, and just like that, after one fight, everything can change, and you don't know what you're going to do. Your whole life is turned upside down,
yeah.
which is why a lot of fighters kind of go into depression, make comebacks, and all that stuff because you don't know where you're going to go from there. But I took a look at myself, and as I said, after the injury, I knew within myself that I would never be the same fighter I was prior to the injury. So in a way, I was quite fortunate that any time I, thought about, oh, let's carry it on, I knew in my head that, I wasn't the same fighter I was before the injury. So that made it a little bit easier for me to make that decision, and stick to it.
I've always known you to be very intelligent and level-headed, Colin. But was there ever a time after 1997 where you thought, maybe just one more?
I think it's always there, but for me, it's like where I had the injury, I had a couple of operations, and I try to stay away from the gym because sometimes what happens is you kind of start going to the gym, start punching the bag, and you start thinking, oh, I can still do it, and you see people around you, and you want to start sparring and having a little go. And I tried to not do that. I took step completely away from the gym, and for a year or two, whatever, didn't do anything, boxing wise. I still kept training, but not boxing wise. And eventually over time, that urge to kind of like to fight, kind of like it stops and you move on and do other things. I think the key sometimes is to try and find something else which you can focus your energy on. And fortunate for me, I was able to do that and look back and enjoy my career, but not try to get back into the spotlight and earn more money. I went in a different direction.
Yeah. So tell us about those other things then, Colin, because I know that you do a tremendous amount now, and I know that you do a tremendous amount for charity as well. And because of your charity work and all these things that you've done, you've got a British Empire Medal. So
Yeah, that's kind of like that was a nice you know nice to be recognised for the work which I've done over the period of time. It's good. I mean, I've been quite fortunate in my life, and you know I've done numerous different things. I've put on a number of different shows and that, and when I retired and that, I wanted to try and do a little bit to try and help people who are less fortunate. I've been very, very fortunate. I've been quite blessed in my life, and I think for all of us, if we can all just do a little something, it makes the lives of people who are less fortunate in themselves a little bit easier. It's something which we all should try and do a little bit of. And I'm quite fortunate. A lot of people around me have that same kind of mentality, and everybody tries to do a little bit. We all try and do a little bit, and hopefully can help people who are less fortunate.
well, I know that you do a lot for charity, and certainly I've met you through charity work, and that's how I know you, and I know that everybody that knows you, Colin, thinks of you as one of the nicest people that they've ever met, let alone the nicest
I don't
boxer.
know about
Uh, so you really are sweet C. Tell us tell us what's happening in the future, so that because what we'll do is we'll put some links on underneath
okay.
underneath this interview, so that people can come and see what you're doing now and go
Okay. Obviously, since I retired, I've been putting on a number of boxing dinner shows. I try and do like 2 a year. We've got one in October the 1st. I've got it's a boxing dinner show, and we raised money for this year. Actually, raised money for partly for my old boxing club, Barking Amateur Boxing Club, where it all started. Every year, I do a little bit and try and raise a little bit of money for them, so they can kind of like buy some equipment, keep on kind of going. And every year we choose a different charity. This year it's for the Dream Factory, another charity which I'm a patron of, which has worked with kids who are going through serious illnesses and that. So that's taking place at the Prince Regent Hotel in Chigwell. And that's I've been doing that for about 14, 15 years. Every year we do, we do a different charity, Worcester Boxing Club. I used to do like a boxing dinner night, an evening with obviously we've had Nigel Ben, Chris Eubank, Nigel Ben, Frank Bruno, Graham McGuigan, Ricky Hatton. They all kind of come down. I think we've got George Groves is booked just before the pandemic, so we're looking to reschedule that for next year when things are better, and that raises charity money for my own charity, the Colin McMillan Boxing Training Academy, because we go into various schools, put programs in schools for a lot of kids with disabilities, to try and give them a feel or taste of what it's like to put on a pair of boxing gloves and box.
That's brilliant, mate. Well, what we'll do is we'll put all those relevant links with this interview, so that we can give that a bit of publicity. Colin, thanks. I love talking to you. Usually,
one thing I forgot to mention, Rick. Sorry, before we go, I am still kind of involved in the boxing game. I'm acting as a mentor for 2 young fighters. One of them is called Hamza Shiraz. He's fighting on October 24th on the same night as Fury and Wilder might not be happening there. I think Joe Joyce is top of the bill. He's a tremendous talent. I think pundits are saying he may be one of the best prospects in the country. And I'm doing a bit of mentoring work with him. And he's got a younger cousin called Umar Khan. He's had his professional debut with Frank Warren, and they're both really exciting fighters. So I've been doing a lot of work with them, and they are ones to watch for the future. So,
okay, well, you've given them a plug, and what that means is that when they're absolute superstars, people can watch this back and say, yeah, see, Colin.
I told you.
While you're making predictions, Colin, this interview is having to go out before Sunday's England versus Italy final. So we at the moment we don't know what the score is. By the time this interview goes live, everyone will know the result. So what's your prediction for Sunday?
I don't know. Obviously, Italy are looking really good at the moment. They look very, very strong. But I've got a funny feeling England. They seem to have got a little bit of luck. And sometimes in life, you need a little bit of luck. And they've got a great team, playing really well, and some exciting players, and that they've got so much depth. So I really believe they can pull it off. And I think already we've seen how much it affects the country. When they've actually reached the final, and I think that will spur them on. It's a real lovely bond of players. So I expect them to hopefully win 2-1 and become Euro champions.
Well, I hope you're right, mate, because I've got a horrible feeling it's going to penalties again. So I hope you're the one that turns out to be correct. Colin, I normally sit next to you at some lovely boxing dinners. Sometimes we've got black tie on. So lovely to talk to you like this, and it'll be great to see you once all the COVID restrictions are lifted and we can get back together.
Definitely.
Colin, this has been absolutely fantastic. Sweet Sea, thank you very much, sir.
My pleasure, Rick. Take care and look after yourself.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Well, what a lovely man Colin is. I always enjoy being with him and talking to him. He was such a talented fighter, and now he does all that great work with charity and the great work with boxers. And keep an eye out for those 2 boxers that he mentioned. I'm sure they really are ones to watch. We've put some links on underneath this broadcast so that you can keep in touch with what Colin is doing now. And please don't forget to subscribe to the In the Fox's Den channel. We always need subscribers, and it's your way of finding out what we're doing next. So until the next time, take care. Bye-bye.